So thank you, Jackie and the team. It's really wonderful to be here, but it's also very peculiar to be doing this remotely, as I usually relish face-to-face interaction. So good evening, everyone. I'm Helen Stokes Lampard. I'm a GP by profession. I'm based in Lichfield in Staffordshire, although I'm sure you'll pick up a Welsh accent along the way. I'm still working at the front line, albeit part-time due to my other commitments. And I'm an academic, and technically I'm a professor of GP education at the University of Birmingham, but I'm currently seconded away from all that. And I wear another hat as chair of the board of the National Academy for Social Prescribing. Now that's a new charity that seeks to explain what social prescribing is, making noise about a movement that's supported by the NHS in England, which is the first major healthcare system in the world to do so. And that academy seeks to generate and disseminate evidence about what works and build partnerships with organisations that deliver social prescribing to ensure it becomes mainstream, ultimately ensuring that everyone can access the support they need to help them live their best life, whatever their medical needs are. And our vision is a social revolution in healthcare. But I was invited to speak to you because I'm also chair of the Academy of the Medical Royal Colleges, the body that brings together every different medical discipline and achieves consensus on standards of care, education, and career progression for doctors, and also that speaks out on behalf of doctors on issues that affect us all. And in this role, I am truly privileged to meet regularly with leaders from across health and care, and to have frequent briefings on what's happening and why, and in turn, to influence things. So our theme for tonight, leadership in a crisis, and what a crisis, or what I call a COVID-tinged world, a world where inequity and the social determinants of health has a very tangible and immediate impact on survival from infection. Now, when I took over as chair of the Academy, it was late July last year. We were at the bottom of the first wave, and my husband and I were just considering booking a few nights away. I'd seen my parents for the first time in 6 months. The UK had just under 300,000 recorded cases and 41,000 deaths. Today, we're still in the turmoil of a horrific third wave. We've got almost 4 million recorded cases in the UK and well over 100,000 have died. Over 2 million are dead worldwide. We are in truly crazy, unprecedented days. Oh, at this point, can I just suggest we drop the term post-COVID? We all know there will be no post-COVID, just the new normal, where COVID's part of our lives. A world where we've survived the pandemic, so yes, post-pandemic, but we will have adapted our lives and our working practices at almost every level. I don't think I need to beat that drum too much, you get this. So before I go on to the more personal, my view of leadership in a crisis bit, with all this turmoil, I thought I should share what the Academy of Medical Royal College's approach to the future is. And I offer you sustainability as an umbrella we can all use to bring us all together. 3 pillars of sustainability, to be precise. Firstly, of course, the sustainability of our planet and our responsibility as healthcare professionals as well as citizens. So the green agenda, if you like. Let's face it, environmental sustainability is a profoundly bigger challenge than COVID-19 to our long-term well-being. And hey, we all know that we can survive by travelling far, far less. But I won't talk too much about that. Secondly, is the sustainability of medical careers. Now, traditionally at the Academy, we've focused on medical students to mid-career doctors. But now we're widening this to consider people from their earliest thoughts of entry to medicine to our long retired colleagues. How can we better nurture them, make training and careers rewarding and fitting for the times in which we live? How are we training with eyes to the future and respecting but not clinging to the past? We must be more aware of the needs of those brought up in a different generation from those of us who tend to be the leaders. Our future training must ensure we're developing doctors who completely understand the need to be patient-centred, who truly understand the social determinants of health and the challenge of health inequalities and digital exclusion. We also need doctors that understand their role as leaders in the new landscape, that understand how the whole system works, that have a great generalist background, irrespective of subsequent specialism. Doctors who are equipped to supervise and support teams of other health and care professionals to ensure that patients get the complete care package that they need, one that fits them as a whole person. Future doctors need to be exceptionally good communicators, translators if you like, If we can all communicate better with our patients and work with them, and if people feel valued, included and part of the healthcare process, they get so much more out of their care, and in turn, they become our greatest allies to fight for the NHS for the future. We also need to ensure that we have sufficient numbers of doctors in every part of the country. We all know the challenges of under-doctored areas. Our current structures, however, celebrate and encourage super specialism in highly specialised centres. So we need to incentivise excellence in generalist clinical practice and incentivise working in those less glamorous areas, not instead of, but as well as the super specialism. Now, thirdly, I want to offer the sustainability of the NHS in all 4 nations. What will ensure that comprehensive, state-funded, universal healthcare can endure for another 70 years? I believe that we need to rethink healthcare, or at the very least reframe it. What I mean is, let's start with the citizen, the person in their own social and domestic situation, empowered to live their best, their healthiest and their most rewarding life. I'm not going to reiterate the social determinants of health again, we all get those, but having access to a good education, living in reasonable housing with people who care for you and love you, based in an environment that supports healthy, sustainable living. So that's communities, local governments, employment, and all the factors we know impact on health inequalities. So then, when people need advice about basic health and well-being or care, they're informed about where to go. They're digitally supported and enabled, and they have accurate, timely information which is personalised at their fingertips or available to them locally. So that then, when there are medical issues, the point at which we call people patients, healthcare entry points are clear, unambiguous, easy to navigate, joined up, and people remain considered as a whole person. And then, of course, when serious medical things are happening, the system responds to those, communicates seamlessly within itself, and does what it needs to do, but always remembering the whole person. And the NHS and the care system doesn't treat people in parts for longer than it has to. And that's rethinking medicine in a summary, starting with the person, not starting with institutions. And it's not at all radical, it's common sense, and I expect that you get this. But actually, it is flipping much of the way our current structures are set up. Structures that currently start with big hospitals and super specialities and work from there. But we know there are myriad initiatives already trying to do this. In Scotland, you have had realistic medicine. In Wales, it's prudent healthcare, and they're a great start at this. NHS England have invested heavily in personalised care, evidence-based interventions, over-medicalisation, ageing well, getting it right first time. But ironically, these initiatives are often done in isolation. So rethinking medicine is my way of stating a vision. And much of what I've touched on so far is nothing to do with putting on the red cape, although I'm wearing a red jacket. It's nothing to do with being a hero in a crisis, but it's about taking people with you. So yes, there are elements of visionary and inspirational leadership, so have a vision, articulate it clearly and repeat it often. But for me, just as important as a leader is making people feel that change is in their control, in their grasp, that change is achievable. So my own leadership journey and my natural style, irrespective of a crisis, are based principally on my authenticity, my honesty, my openness. And for me, learning about myself has been a vital part of my journey, understanding what makes me tick, investing in myself, coming to understand that the only thing we can reliably change is actually ourselves, knowing what the risks are when I'm under huge stress, how resilient I am, and what helps me recharge my batteries. I've learned to give myself permission to fail, and I'm also learning to fail well and recover, like a cat landing on its feet, learning to survive and move on. Doctors as high achievers are often not great at this. Now, for some people, doing a formal leadership course helps. For others, just reading up about it or attending courses, and personally, I found all those things helpful. But for me, doing psychometric tests and having one-to-one feedback was also illuminating, realising that I'm high on the emotional intelligence scales, but that makes me vulnerable to taking stuff too personally. Fortunately, I'm naturally resilient, so I feel things hard, but I bounce back. Now, some are sceptical about the value of these things, but all I can say is I found them really helpful as part of my journey of discovery. I've learned courage along the way, courage to speak out and act quickly when something morally wrong is happening. I hesitated once, a terribly British sort of polite discretion, but I still bitterly regret it. But I learned a powerful lesson from it, and I've subsequently behaved differently. I've called out bad behaviour, but of course that doesn't always need to involve the public humiliation of others. I've learned that I can control my personal impact and my personal volume, if you like. Like, I'm a naturally energetic, enthusiastic extrovert, but that can be a bit overwhelming for some people, and I certainly can't chair board meetings effectively in that zone. So I've learned to dial it down. Now, if I were in the room with you right now, I'd be walking around, making eye contact with each and every one of you, and it would feel energetic. But that would just be weird on screen. So I'm dialed down right now. Another thing I've learned is I need time outdoors every day. So whilst I'm working from home, it's meant that despite the relentless pressure of work, and I could sit at this camera every minute of every day, I make myself take short breaks and I get out in the garden. Look, the reason I'm not going to be here for the discussion later is I'm actually on planned annual leave this week. Clearly, I won't be on a beach somewhere, and I was tempted to do this live regardless. But I followed my own rules, and I pre-recorded this a few days ago. I'm not always great at sticking to my rules, but I found a formula that works for me. And once you truly understand yourself, then it's on to investing in understanding your colleagues, your team members. Now, in medicine, we can't always choose our teams, and I've inherited many over the years, and my work in the Royal Colleges brings the challenges of being elected, not appointed to posts. Everyone else is elected too, so as a leader, you have to make the best of what teams you're given. But building and nurturing others is vital, and particularly valuing the next generation, cultivating them, nurturing them. In the same way I took to understand myself, I now invest time in understanding my colleagues, my team members. And for me, it's been also really important to cultivate safe spaces for teams to do the difficult stuff in a grown-up way. So I value honesty. I seek out those with a different style or skill set, and I value the grit in the oyster. Recognizing the differences or awkwardness can actually be really illuminating. Now, in my experience, it's only mature teams that can handle this. Sometimes bringing in a facilitator can really help protect people from feeling too vulnerable when they're challenged. But all this stuff for me is general leadership. So perhaps a few more focused observations on leading in a crisis. First of all, you cannot plan for every eventuality. So personal and team flexibility is really important to encourage over time. But you can plan for cross-covering functions. You can plan for resource limitations, and you can plan for a limited range of scenarios, so do so. And then recognize when you are truly in exceptional times and be honest about it. Set up short-term mitigations with a plan to review them and provide hope whilst trying to maintain that air of calm control. So, yes, it is difficult right now. So we're going to do X for a few months. But I'm here for you. Please be kind to yourselves. And I promise when this is over, we will have some fun. And then when it is over, identify when it's over and stick to your promises. Another thing I've learned in a crisis is you have to trust your instincts more. When I need to make quick decisions, I just do it in the full knowledge that my instinct is generally quite good. And there are times where speed is of the essence. But I also know that decisions reflected upon and consulted on are actually usually the best ones when the time permits. I won't linger on media stuff, that's another talk for another day. But currently it's very easy as a doctor to get on TV. But media in a crisis is subtly different from media work in normal times. As established medical leaders, it's more beholden than ever for us to get the facts right. We're experiencing a terrible run of people shouting their mouths off without knowing the facts right now. And we all know that a lie has gone right around the earth while the truth is tying its shoelaces. So, media, beware. Finally, I embrace the Harry Truman saying, it's amazing what you can achieve if you don't care who gets the credit. Now, this is always true, but I believe it's even more so in a crisis. Every member of the team has a vital role to play, and in a crisis, traditional hierarchies need to be mixed up quite often. Let the right person lead at any one time. Their area of strength, give them your backing. Let them flourish. So to badly paraphrase, come for the hour, come the right leader. So I'm going to wrap up shortly by suggesting 3 things we can and must prioritise if we're to stop the health and care system falling over as a result of this pandemic. Firstly, demonstrate clear, unambiguous clinical leadership. So that means us as doctors owning the issues, setting clear direction and leading by example. The second priority, we need to call out poor decisions, poor policies, poor practices. If something's wrong and if the quality of care is being put at risk, particularly for the sake of political expediency or dogma, we must say so. And those of us who have a regional or national voice must speak very clearly and, if required, loudly. Now, sometimes that'll be publicly, often in private. Now, look, goodness knows what further sloganised messages and directives from government and the media are going to be landed on a frustrated and confused public. We need to be the voices of clarity, consistency and confidence. Finally, and perhaps the most exciting opportunity ahead, is to reset our patients' relationship with the healthcare system. I believe we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to have an honest conversation about the care that doctors should and should not be delivering, where that care should take place, and what our patients should and should not reasonably expect. So we start the medical journey with the patient, not with institution, rethinking medicine in a practical, accessible way. Our role as doctors and healthcare professionals, whatever level of leadership we occupy, is to do everything we can to ensure that the apocalyptic predictions do not happen. We must be part of the solutions, not amplifying the problems. After a truly grim year, we're also entering a time of hope where, despite the media rhetoric and political squabbling that drags us down, there are bright gems sparkling with positivity and promise for the future. We are truly privileged to be doctors, and together we can achieve amazing things. So I'm sorry again not to be around for the discussion, but thank you so much for your attention and thank you for the invitation.